G'day guys, it's Jeff Ware here from BikeReview.com.au. I'm in sunny Santa Cruz here in California, and I've just spent 2 days testing the new Royal Enfield 650 Twins. Yesterday we spent the day on the Interceptor, and today we've spent the day on the GT. Fantastic bikes, both of them. Everyone here is really surprised. I think they were better than we thought they were going to be, to be honest. Really impressive. So this here obviously is the GT, just starting quickly from front to back in completely new bikes. The development team are very well-known, experienced people, including the chassis head development writer is our own Paul Young. So really experienced people on the project, many years of planning. We've had the whole technical team here to talk to and interview, and this is a really step up for Royal Enfield. It's very much brought them up into the market along with the Japanese and all the other British brands. The bike is learner legal in Australia, so it's LAMS approved. It's 47 horsepower, parallel twin, air cooled. It seems like a nice basic styled engine, but that's the way they wanted it. They wanted an air cooled engine. It's got a great exhaust note, fuel injection obviously, really torquey. It's got a beautiful torque curve. Starts down at around 2,500 RPM, all the way through to around 7,500 RPM. We even did a top speed run today. The handling is sublime, it's super neutral. No stand up on the brakes. If you hit the rear brake mid-corner, it just pulls it in nice and tight. We had a massive range of roads. We had bumpy roads, we had fast roads, we had open roads, and nothing phases this bike. It's got nice, lively steering geometry. It's very characterful to ride. It's not tiring. And so it's a great bike for the learner or the experienced rider. In terms of the two models, they're pretty much exactly the same. The only difference are the handlebars and the tank and seat shape, but they're quite different to ride because the Interceptor's upright with the big bars. It's easier to throw it around and muscle it around. this is more of your old school ride. You know, it likes the big sweeping corners, the big fast lines, and you need to be ride it with a bit more finesse. But overall, fantastic motorcycle. Brakes are good, no fade, suspension's great. Really impressed with this bike. Been hanging around the beach a bit, been here for about 4 days. I spent the first day riding the Interceptor, and I spent the second day on the Continental GT. And I have to say, I'm not alone here in the 60 journalists I've been with for the last 2 days. That very surprised, very excited for Royal Enfield, fantastic bike. So I'll start with the background of the whole project. It started about 5 or 6 years ago, really, the thinking, even longer than that possibly. Royal Enfield decided to build a large capacity for India, but a mid-capacity motorcycle that they could really take global. Because up until now, 96% of their sales have been in India, and we're talking around 800,000 units a year. That's grown from 50,000 units a year 15 years ago. So the CEO, Sid, who you can read more about in my article on BikeReview.com.au, he's here with us. He actually rode with us. He's been hanging out with us, having beers. He's a really cool guy. He's been the CEO since he was 27 years old. He took over Royal Enfield. He's a huge motorcyclist, huge Royal Enfield fan, and he's really driven this company, driven this project. This is my first big Royal Enfield event, and it's a really cool young team. I was really happy to see that the development riders and the chassis development team, the engine team, the styling guys, I know a lot about them. Most of them are British guys, some Japanese, the ones we met, the leaders. And the chassis development rider is actually Iron Aussie legend racer Paul Young, and ex-journalist Paul Young. So we know he knows a lot about the bike, so we knew it was going to be good. So yeah, really interesting technical presentations, because the amount of work has been massive on this motorcycle. It's a 270-degree crank, and even the big wigs at Royal Enfield went and tested multiple engines to see which one was most engaging and most fun. It's a really different motorcycle, and it's basic, but it's just really good fun. So the first one I rode, like I said, was the Interceptor. As soon as I hopped on it, I knew straight away it was a nice motorbike. The finish is fantastic, but it's just the seating position, extremely comfortable. The bars are quite close to you. It's an upright, more of a scrambler style naked bike. Hence why we're here, by the way, in California, because the very first Interceptor was based on the lifestyle around California, and it was a huge seller here in the late 60s, early 70s. So they both share the same frame, engine, wheels, which are 18-inch by the way, 18-inch spoke wheels, same brakes, everything's exactly the same on the two machines, apart from the GT has a little bit more rear preload on the springs, on the rear shocks, and that's it. So the Interceptor is extremely smooth. It's 47 horsepower. It makes torque from right off the bottom. Beautiful flat torque all the way through to the rev limiter, which is somewhere up around 7,000 RPM. Spent a lot of time on that rev limiter, believe me. These lead riders were not hanging around, and I had a fantastic day riding with them, absolutely flat out. The gearbox is extremely smooth, the clutch action's light and smooth, and it's got a slipper clutch, which is very well tuned and well dialed in. Fueling is spot on. I've met the guys that look after all that and had a chat to them. Fueling is silky smooth. Throttle there's absolutely no throttle snatch whatsoever. There's no dips, there's no holes. It's beautiful all the way through the rev range. The gears are nice and wide and long, so top gear's a bit of an overdrive, but it's not the speed anyway, it's the fun getting there. It's got really strong acceleration. It's just a fantastic motor, and what I really love about it the most is the engine note. It's got this crack out of even the standard twin pipes has this beautiful crack that the 270 degree crank creates. And there was one here with an aftermarket system that they're trialling and developing, and it was really loud, and man, I'll tell you, there's nothing that sounds like this thing. It's very, very cool. So yeah, that makes it exciting and engaging and fun to ride. And then in terms of handling, it's well balanced. It's quite racy, I guess, in its steering, so it's really agile. Handlebars are quite close back, the headstock's been brought in a little bit, and 18-inch wheels are not ideal for a motorcycle, but they look good, and Royal Enfield wanted that look. They didn't want 17-inch wheels, they wanted 18-inch spoked wheels. So in order to get the steering fast and the stability still there, a lot of work went into the frame design, the flex points, the offsets, the steering angle. 1,000,000 kilometres of testing actually by the chassis development team. And what they've given us is this motorcycle that goes anywhere you want it to go. So there's no stand up on the brakes. There's no surprises. If you hit a bump, yes, you get a little bit of a shake and it corrects itself immediately. At high speed, tipping into high speed corners, you might get a tiny weave and it just goes away straight away. The benefit of putting up with those small things is you have a bike that you can literally put anywhere. If you're already committed to a turn, you can pull it in tight on the rear brake. You can lift it up, you can go around a bit of water or a pothole or stand it up for some gravel, change lines. If you find yourself on a corner that's tightening up that you don't know well, you can just tighten it up. It's incredible. It's got really good ground clearance. So I touched the pegs down a few times just to get a feel of where it is. But even if you're at full lean angle, you can still change that line. And that's what's going to be really good for the learner riders, because it's not going to be too easy to crash this motorcycle. It'll go where you want it to go, which means an inexperienced rider can get themselves out of trouble easier than they otherwise may. On the other hand, the experienced riders like myself and a lot of you guys and girls, you will find this motorcycle very rewarding. It cannot limit your riding and your fun, because it responds to being pushed. It likes to be pushed, and you can ride really quick on it. We rode on super tight roads like first and second gear. We rode on flat top gear, sweeping corners for like 10 kilometres at a time with the head on the tank in top gear. We rode on the highway, we rode around town, we did everything. Huge ride all day. On the Interceptor, came back feeling refreshed and fantastic. Very impressive. The finish is beautiful, and there's very little to fault on this motorcycle. The GT, I rode the next day. The GT has the clip-on handlebars, cafe racer style tank and seat, a little bit more rear preload. It's a very different motorcycle though to look at. It's gorgeous. It's a lot different to sit on as well. So you've got your more leaned forward position. Engine performance identical to the Interceptor. So all the positives and all the things I just said about the motorcycle remain. The difference with the GT is obviously that riding position. For me, I preferred the Interceptor. A lot of other people prefer the GT. It's great, that's why there's two choices there to ride. The GT was nicer, obviously, with bigger, sweeping, old school corners. It's one of those bikes that likes to be ridden the way I ride, which was how we raced in the 90s, I guess, with the big, long arcs, big, long, sweeping corners, old school, with lots of lean angle. Very cool, cafe racer style. Fabulous. A little bit more weaving with the GT at high speed into turns. That's more than likely the weight forward, and there's just the narrower handlebars. I just found myself moving my hands out a little bit and holding closer to the balance weights on the GT. And more vibrations in the handlebars. There's zero vibrations in the handlebars of the Interceptor. Some tingling on the GT, purely because the handlebars aren't as damped because they're bolted to the forks, being clip-ons. It's a very small price to pay for a great riding position, and it didn't cause any problems for me. Suspension felt quite a bit firmer. It's only one more click of preload in the back, but on the GT I definitely felt there was a lack of rebound control. So we hit a sharp bump and it would kick back forward. So I would hope that that would be changed in models to come, or there would be an option for more adjustment, because there is only preload adjustment on the rear shocks. So it would be nice to have a little bit more rebound control. In saying that, I did not have the opportunity to take a bit of preload off them and see how that helped. I just ran out of time myself. So when we test the bike in Australia, we'll have a little bit of a play there. Apart from that, both bikes were fabulous. The brakes were amazing. Single rotor brake with more power than most twin systems of a motorcycle that size. We were braking like crazy all day, non-stop, into the most gnarly corners, and we had zero brake fade. I haven't heard from anyone that had any brake fade at all. And lots of feel, initial bite, brilliant brakes. There's no adjustment on the levers, but I found them comfortable. The rear brake as well. The rear brake has a lot of feel and a lot of power, and I reckon I burnt through half a set of brake pads because I use so much rear brake, and it's a motorcycle that loves rear brake. And also no fade at all from the rear brake. None of the motorcycles had any issues. I will say there was a period of time where I was on the rev limiter for a very long time as I went down hills at top speed, and then up the hills it would pop off the rev limiter, then back down it would hit the rev limiter again, and that went on for kilometres, and nothing. The bikes are fabulous. Really amazed. I'm really happy for Royal Enfield that they've built this motorcycle. They've definitely arrived at the level of all the European and Japanese manufacturers, and they've exceeded a lot of motorcycles in that category. So I think you're going to see things change now for Royal Enfield. If people ride this motorcycle, they're going to be impressed, and it's got a lot of cool accessories, a lot of aftermarket parts, not just outsourced, all designed and made in-house by the design team. So there's a lot more to watch out from. We'll definitely test this motorcycle again when we're in Australia, see how it is in Australian conditions, but the conditions here are very, very similar. So I can't see it being any different. Brilliant bike. We've been given a price in the US of $5,490 US, so we don't know the Australian price yet. I'm hoping somewhere between 9 and 11, and if it is, watch out, it's going to be crazy. Anyway, that was my quick ride impression for you, but the full review will be on BikeReview.com.au. Thanks a lot for watching. I'm going to go and grab a beer and have a look around before I catch my flight home. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel, like the video if you like it, and have a fantastic day.